So I'm here with Jen, who comes to our church, has come to our church for the past year or so, and her life has begun to change. And I want her to tell you her story. Jen's had a rough life, made some tough choices. Can you tell us about it?
It was a very bumpy road. In my life, I've chose men and partying, drugs and alcohol. A lot of things took priority in my life that shouldn't have. My children, I started choosing things over my children, and that wasn't a very good thing. It was kind of like an evolutionary merry-go-round that just got more and more toxic. My breaking point was in 2017. I did have a nervous breakdown.
Why?
I was living with a toxic person I chose to. It was a constant back and forth, kept taking him back, and it just got progressively worse. And I really came to the end of it where I wanted things to end and was stuck. I had to get a protection order to get him out of my house. So that's how toxic he was. And I did that eventually. He stayed. It was a point where my son, it was like you couldn't take it back anymore. That I couldn't take my son back to my home. And I went down and I got a protection order to get him out of the house.
You had to make a change. How hard was it to actually make the change from your past pattern of living?
When you live in a toxic, out of control life, it is your own personal brand of heroin. It is very addicting, like drugs and alcohol are addicting. And it's breaking the cycle.
How hard was it to do?
It was very hard. I had to put my complete faith in God that He was going to help me out of this situation, and like He helped me for my whole life.
Was it hard for you to trust God at that point?
It was because I didn't trust anybody, and I still have a hard time trusting people. And to be honest, like some situations, it's hard for me to completely trust that it's going to be taken care of.
So you still struggle with that sometimes?
Sometimes I do, yes. I just have gotten more consistent with prayer and learning how to have faith in my God, because He's bigger than anything else.
The longer you walk with God, does it get any easier?
It does. It's not perfect. There's still side balls thrown at you. Where in the Bible, it's quite often that thou shalt not be afraid, for I am with you. I have to remind myself of that. To practice kindness to people that aren't kind to me, or if I don't feel like being kind. Different things like that.
So, do you wish you had changed earlier?
I do. It would have been a lot less traumatic for my children and my family.
Yeah. How do you live with your regrets?
Try to forgive myself.
Mm-hmm.
The more I put my faith in God and I've given my life over to Him, the more He helps me understand who I am or who I was and why I made the choices that I do. And I think it's just so that I can forgive myself and give that love to myself that I tried to give to everybody else.
Are you hopeful about your future?
I am. Since 2017. It is now, well, was 2021. My children are forgiving me for the mistakes that I have made. My family's forgiving me. I'm rebuilding relationships. Just in July, I had the opportunity thrown in my lap to start my own business, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
You mentioned that you came to our church's church service around Labor Day several years ago when we baptized people outside the lower parking lot.
Yes.
And that service was very impactful in your life. Why? What happened to you that day?
What happened to me in my mind was that I realized that I am forgivable in the eyes of my Father. I am forgivable. And no matter how guilty and shameful I felt for the things that I have done or not done, he loves me anyways, and he forgives me.
How profound was that for you?
It was very healing to my soul, and that's what giving my life over to God is doing, is healing me to my core, my soul.
That was the transition moment, wasn't it?
It was. And I still was like on the fence. You know, I was transitioning, but I was still kind of on the fence. But just this past April, like, I decided that I didn't want to be around anybody or anything that would make me put my family and my grandchildren and God to the side because somebody else thought different. I just decided one day that I don't want to do it anymore. It was a Wednesday. Well, actually, it was a Sunday. Wednesday, I rented out a storage unit to put my whole life belongings in. And Thursday, I moved out in one day by myself and put the keys in the door slot of bad decisions. I mean, literally, it was a house. I put the keys in there, and I left that life behind, and I've never looked back.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it feels good. My children and my family, I'm being forgiven.
You get pushback from people in making that decision?
I do. I do. Some of, like, I keep in contact with some of the people that knew me 10 plus years ago, and Jennifer sold that building and left. Yeah, I gave myself to God, all of my bad choices, my abuse to my own self, mentally and spiritually and physically. I've given it all back, and I'm just keeping my head up and moving forward, praying and doing what I have to do, focusing.